Divorce attorneys of Reddit, who was the most entitled spouse you've ever seen? The reason there wasn't a video yesterday is because the robot wrangling man had literal acid rain at work and had to spend a day to recuperate. Hopefully the new valve won't burst. I worked for a client during a mediation. Her first offer of how to break down the assets left her with over 90% of the marital assets. The husband hadn't even cheated on her. She thought it was perfectly reasonable, and we had to convince her that if that was what she wanted, then the other side would just take it to trial and at worst walk away with 55%. I had another mediation that was completely agreed upon. Well over $1 million were at stake. Both sides agreed to the disposition of the marital assets. But then, after almost 6 hours of negotiating, the wife realized that one bank account with less than $10,000 was going to the husband instead of her, and the whole agreement broke down over that. She was willing to pay way more than 10 grand to go to trial and possibly get less, because she thought it was unfair for the husband to get the money. I once got a woman $15,000 per month in non-taxable support. She began to cry in my office because it's impossible for one person to live off of that. She annoyed me. I have a client whose ex-wife received over $1 million over 7 years and could not believe the gravy train was stopping. She was remarried and didn't have to work. She is just greedy as F. She cried when my analysis of the settlement and payments showed she was only owed $10K. I was hired to do an analysis because she believed she was owed another $1 million. Husband had a good career. Husband cheated on wife. Wife was justifiably upset. Husband moves out of marital home and to closest major city. Husband pays mortgage off on marital home over more than 20 years. Husband gives wife living expenses each month. 20+ years after separation, wife files for divorce because she wants half of his retirement as well. They literally had not even seen each other for over 20 years. Wife was my last domestic relations client ever. Mine would be an alcoholic guy. It was a middle-aged third marriage for both of them. They both had fairly nice lives set up beforehand. Cars, vacations, good jobs, etc. When they decide to get married, she sells her house to move to his. Discovers he's actually a hoarder and the place is a wreck on the inside. She quits her job and cleans it up. She realizes he hasn't filed or withheld taxes in like 10 years. She prepares returns for him and negotiates his tax debt way down. His house is about to go into foreclosure. She spends her nest egg on keeping it from being sold. He beats her and cheats on her. She finally leaves his ass. In the divorce, she asks to be put back in the position she was in. His response was pretty much F you. Your money's all spent and all that's left is mine. I'm pleased to report that did not end well for him. I wasn't involved in this divorce, but a long-running divorce in my county involved a wife who refused to work in any way, shape or form. Any type of work. The husband illustrated how lazy she was when he sent his construction crew to the house while she was out of town and removed something like 5 to 6 truckloads of dirty clothes from the house and tried to bring them to court as evidence as part of his effort to reduce the temporary alimony he was paying. Rather than wash her or the kids' clothes, she would just buy new clothes every week. I used to work as a family law attorney. Never again. It's one of those fields you either love or hate. I'm the latter. I had clients who fought over custody of children they did not want, only because they wanted to pay less or no child support. I had a client say that she would quit her job one day before retirement benefits vested, just so the ex-spouse wouldn't get a portion of it. Imagine giving up your own retirement just to hurt someone you once loved. I think my most entitled client, though, was someone who had no children, a well-paying job, and lived quite comfortably, perhaps even lavishly. Client made domestic violence claims with nothing to back them up, tallied up every expense from the marriage in an attempt to show that ex-spouse had been hiding money, claimed he had no money to live on, despite having a 6-figure income, and needed spousal support, and threw fits when he did not get his way, both in court and out. This client was an absolute nightmare to work with, and if I hadn't been just an associate and had been allowed to choose my clients, I would have fired this one a million times. My client, who, in her mid-40s, had never worked a day in her life. She'd gone from her father's home to her husband's and expected a man to take care of her the rest of her life. Husband worked, but wasn't making a ton. The idea that she would need to transition into the workforce was so unfair. In our settlement negotiations when discussing spousal support, I asked her if X would be enough. Her response, screaming in the judge's conference room and slamming her hand on the table, "No, it's not enough. It's never enough." Judge's staff and opposing counsel walked in to make sure she hadn't knocked me against the wall. The case had been ongoing for over a year at this point, and she still hadn't been able to consider that she would be self-sufficient. Hardest case I've ever had, because I just couldn't relate to my client in any way. Feminism completely missed her, and having it hit you in the face in your 40s must be rough. I was doing some construction work for a divorce lawyer last year, and she was in the middle of a doozy. The gist of it is that this guy wanted to get divorced, didn't want to pay anything for child support, but wanted to get the kid and have her pay. This guy literally brought in some weed that he found in her dresser like 3 years ago, into a courtroom, just holding a few grams of weed. Tries to walk up to the judge with it, and apparently everyone laid into him about how dumb that was and how it meant nothing. The attorney I was working for tried to get him arrested for it, but the judge was so disappointed in this guy he said that his stupidity was punishment enough. Needless to say, he didn't win. When I was an article clerk, we had a divorce with a 1994 case number, and we only settled the matter in 2004. Another matter was eventually settled, and on the day the divorce was heard, and at the moment we were called into court, my client decided not to proceed because her mother's 15-year-old old curtains were not part of the settlement agreement. Had a husband and wife go toe to toe over an ashtray they got in Las Vegas at some point. Neither smoked, strangely enough. Spent nearly $5,000 for me and another attorney to duke it out in court over the silly thing. Prior to proceeding, I explained what the cost would be to argue over something silly like this, and that he could give me $2,500 and I would fly to Vegas for the weekend and get him an identical one instead. He said he didn't care about the costs because he intended to smash it on the courthouse steps in front of her if we won. We won and he followed through with the smashing. He laughed and said the look on her face was worth much more than $2,500. People get crazy in divorce proceedings. Husband and wife, still living together at the time, had a small confrontation. The husband pulls a sphincter says what on her, and she takes the bait and says what. He giggled like a little kid. She then told her lawyer, who had to talk to his lawyer. His lawyer asked him if he called his wife a sphincter, and told him he is not allowed to call her that anymore. 20+ year divorce lawyer here. I've seen it all. I once represented a husband divorcing his wife of 35+ years. They were in their late 60s. At mediation they divided up about $500,000 in assets within 30 minutes. Then they spent 2.5 hours fighting over 2 hurricane glasses from Pat O'Brien's and a pitchfork. Mediator: she really wants that pitchfork. It was a gift from her daddy. Husband: that bad person. We bought it at Home Depot 2 years ago. And etc. They settled at mediation after spending over $1,000 in attorney fees combined for the glasses and pitchfork. They remarried 3 months later. I was sitting in the lobby of the courthouse while my parents were in the courtroom getting divorced. The couple before my parents had come out of the courtroom and were consulting with their lawyers on opposite sides of the very large lobby. The woman and her lawyer decided, for some reason, to stop and talk directly in front of me. She was completely wild with rage. Her lawyer finally got her to shut up for a minute and explained to her that her husband was offering her a settlement in which she gets the house, the car, all the money, all the retirement savings, full custody of the kids, the child support she asked for, the alimony she asked for, all the possessions, absolutely everything, and all he wanted was his clothes, a few dishes, and the microwave, and the lawyer told her that she'd better take this offer because she certainly wasn't going to get anything better, and the husband had made clear that if there was any argument about this at all he was going to fight tooth and nail for everything because he was offering this so he could walk away, and if she made him go through a court battle over those few meager things he was going to make her pay. She started screaming and raged that, "That's my microwave. He can't have my microwave. The lawyer told her to shut up and take the offer because she could go buy another microwave for less than the cost of the time he will bill her for just to have this discussion. But no, she returned to screaming about my microwave. He can't have my microwave, and demanded they go back into court and battle it out for the damned microwave, no matter the cost. People are stupid. I'm pretty sure that lady is just in love with the microwave. Why else would she be so angry about it? Thanks for watching, and please tell me what topics you're interested in.